These videos were shot and first went live in 2021 to 2023 as a part of Designer Shala's podcast, The Creative Hour on Instagram, where we interviewed unique designers and creatives on their journey in design. This is an effort to preserve those talks and help future designers and aspirants to understand design better. The views, opinions, and experiences shared in the Creative Hour podcast are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Designer Shala. Designer Shala holds no accountability or responsibility for any statements, claims, or perspectives expressed during the podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
Would you say that sustainable fashion is a large part of fashion? No. Fashion is important, but technology is key. You'll note that a lot of these very successful brands, large-scale brands, their founders are not designers, they're engineers, including me. And there were points where I was like, what am I doing with my life?
Hello. I'm so excited to welcome each one of you to the Creative Hour at Designer Shala. We are kicking off this series on fashion conversations in the design industry. We're getting leading design experts to come talk about their journeys and upcoming design experts to come talk about their journeys in the fashion and design industry in the country and internationally, of course, in an effort to make sure that bridge is created and that gap is filled for design aspirants and design lovers, and they get actual stories of fashion entrepreneurs, fashion designers, stylists, designers in different fields, and understand what is it like to be a part of this design industry and what does it feel like to actually be on the other side. So, hi Kirti, how are you?
Hey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. So excited to see you.
Thank you, and super excited to be here. What a wonderful platform you've created, and I think I couldn't be more vocal about how necessary it is in India. So you've really built something special.
Thank you so much. That is so kind of you, and you're on your way onto building something so incredibly special yourself. And before we digress and start talking about everything else, I'd really like to congratulate you on your last round of funding, and of course, Google for Startup Accelerator. Oh my God, you go, girl.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Kirti, I have a couple of questions, of course, for you and for our audiences. We have a lot of kids who come from sort of a non-design background. A lot of kids sort of come from a space where they want to study design, right? And in 2023, sustainability is sort of the need of the hour, right? And it's not something that can be neglected anymore. It's something that needs to be incorporated in the education system, as you rightly said, that, it's the need of the hour that we talk about these things. You came up with the concept of Relove at a time in India where we most needed it. But could you explain to us first of all, how did the name Relove come into the picture?
Wow. So you know that we set up a refill business before this, and so the brand name was Restore, and we were with the intent of restoring the planet. So we built out the branding, and then we realized that it was quite complex to deploy circularity in personal care because there are a lot of FDA regulations around it, and it's a very drastic change in behavior, right? To be more sustainable in personal care, you have to pay more.
Correct.
But to be right, you have to buy better ingredients, you have to buy aluminium bottles. So as a consumer, consumers are not yet ready for that, right? And you have to also change behavior very drastically. So if you throw bottles right now, you have to stop throwing them, right? Correct. But in fashion, it's easier to be sustainable at a more cheaper price point if you're buying pre-loved, right? Correct. So you're extending the life of a garment and you're getting it for much cheaper. So we deployed it for fashion, and we were at the time looking for another rename, and so came about Relove, and because it was such a positive connotation to the idea of buying pre-loved, right? It's not love before, it's not secondhand, it's re-love. So we just loved it, and I think everyone we know loves it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I 100% agree. The moment you hear the word Relove now with the pre-loved market in India growing, Relove is like a name to reckon, right? Every conversation that I've had, I think in the last 2 months with anybody when it comes to sustainability, Relove is the first name that pops up for all of us. I'm like, oh, do you know Relove? And I'm like, yes, 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 100%. So, and it is a name that you sort of feel very fondly for, right? There's like an emotional connect for some reason. The moment you hear the name, you feel like, oh, I'm re-loving that product and getting it back, right? It's not like, it's not thrift shopping. It's not, of course, it's not even closely related to thrift shopping, but it's also not like, second hands or hand me downs. It sounds very beautiful and it sounds very true to its essence. But can you explain to us how Relove contributes to the concept of circular economy and how does it reduce fashion waste in the fashion industry?
So, overproduction has been one of the major concerns in fashion right now. And along with overproduction, there is overconsumption, right? We all have bigger wardrobes than people had in their 1920s or the 1800s or even early 2000s. We are buying a lot more right now. We only end up wearing 20% of our wardrobe 80% of the times, right? We're going for those leggings, we're going for those jeans, and we continue to do that. And so there is a gross amount of underutilization in wardrobes. If you resell an item that's sitting idle in the back of somebody's closet, which is also a mini landfill waiting to happen, you eliminate the entire production of another item right from planting the seed, land, water, harvesting it, making yarn out of it, weaving a fabric, making a dress, shipping a dress, marketing a dress. You eliminate that entire process from scratch, right? Now,
100%. Yeah.
at this point where resale is becoming a thing to mitigate overproduction, are we sure that it is going to eliminate another product's production? No, right? That nobody can guarantee because people will continue to produce, right? But as they see the power shifting, as they see that people are buying more pre-loved items, even fashion brands are going to indulge in the pre-loved market, which is what has happened with Relove, right?
Correct.
Which in turn will reduce production.
That actually sounds very, very interesting, and also that's so fair to say, right? And I love the quote where you say that all of our wardrobes currently are landfills in the making. So in whatever way we can contribute, right, and reduce that, it makes absolute sense. Love that. So are there ways in which Relove sort of encourages users to participate in the circular fashion ecosystem? Are there ways where beyond just buying and selling, they can be more sort of more invested in the entire process?
Absolutely. I think one of the things from the start was that we should not be pitching people to buy more clothes, right? Like, if we're doing that, then we're just like yet another, sort of fashion thing, trying to sell more things to people. So, a lot of the content around Relove and on Relove's page is educational, and it's a lot around rewear and not buying and just styling better. And that I feel has encouraged people. I know people who DM me saying that a year ago I didn't think about buying, another item. I didn't think much before buying one, and now I do, and it's because of this page.
Love
And
that.
it's really built that awareness in a lot of people.
That's lovely. And in fact, I think I'd once seen one of your beautiful reels on sort of how to, embroider on like a little hole on your garment and sort of, make it look more beautiful as well as like give it some more love. And I think that was so beautiful because I ended up doing it after that. I was like, I'm going to put like a little patch
Yeah.
and, do it for so I did it for one of Vikas's shirts. Of course, he doesn't like it anymore because I made a flower on it. But but nonetheless, I'm wearing it now. So as long as the purpose is solved. But yeah, I think a lot of the content that you put out is really, really beautiful, and I actually applaud you on the kind of effort that goes on your social media. It's quite
Thank
in depth
you.
and quite educational.
Thank you. And I think one of the other things is that somewhere in the middle, we started becoming an activist. We were like a lot of educational content, but then we kind of diverted ourselves to making it fun.
Correct.
Um, if you've seen the latest Zara campaign, it's all about Bollywood songs that have the word Zara
Correct.
in it, right?
Correct.
So we also keep shifting course according to what we feel is the vibe of the audience. Because you can't just make them feel bad about fashion.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%. All right. So, could you share insights with us maybe on, I mean, now that we're discussing the Zara campaign, which has been on the top of my head for a while now, could you share insights on how Relove sort of handled the sort of life cycle of those items, and how was that entire process of taking the entire Zara campaign live?
So the first thing is people send us a big bag of all the clothes that they have from Zara, which is what we did in the first pilot that we did last month. We then actually segregate and do a sorting of grade A, B, C, D, and E. A is great garments with tags, brand new, people bought them, haven't worn them. Um, B is something that's faded. C is something that has a stain. D is something that is not to be resold, but somebody who's getting it free or is being donated that item will be very happy to take it. And E is it should not even be donated. It has a stain on it, very bad one, in a bad location. And I had to see a lot of such garments while processing them. It was not fun. And there were points where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Opening all these really badly stained items. So they need to be recycled. The E category needs to be recycled. Um, so, fortunately, they weren't a very large percentage of our garments that we got. And a lot of them, if the sellers want to take them back, they can actually pay a processing fee for this entire sorting, segregation, authentic, and they can take the item back also within a stipulated period of time and pay, but they have to pay for their own shipping, because otherwise it's a very expensive exercise to do the sorting and then give somebody their garments back, right? Because every step of that sorting, segregation, photography costs a lot. So after this very hectic procedure is done, which also includes tagging of the garments, because you can lose them, right? You get 1,000 garments. How are you going to house them? Each one unique. Tagging, photography, cleaning at times. I've cleaned a lot of stains, I can say that. Um, so after that, we basically, sort of list them up, and we try to do a 1 day sale, like a, pop sale for these items, and whatever gets sold gets shipped to the buyers. The buyers get 48 hours to say that no, there's an issue more than that was declared, right? So, for example, there was a hole, but no, there's more than a hole. And should there be no issue, then the sellers are paid. And some of the sellers have made as much as like 25 to 30,000, right? Like, and some of the sellers made 1, 2 items. Of course, the big ones are rare, but there are people who have a huge amount of Zara in their wardrobe. Um, so that's the entire operating procedure. Um, you know, I think we had a great launch of the campaign. But I'd definitely say that India has a lot more people that are interested in selling than and I think proportionately not as many people who are okay with pre-loved, right? So I would say that industry is going to grow. It's needless to say it's going to grow, but the acceptance is being built by people like us, right?
100%. 100%. I feel like there's so much more awareness that still needs to be there, and there's so much more acceptance that needs to be there. Because, I mean, as a country, we've always had hand me downs as a part of our culture, right? Whatever is your bade bhaiya ka kapda, you're going to get it if you're the younger one, right? And
Yeah.
whatever is the younger one's ka kapda, you'll get it. But actually, sort of doing this in a transactional basis where you're selling and buying goods from people you don't know, right?
Yeah.
In that format, it's going to take a little bit of time. So, where do you see the future of pre-loved goods in India? Where do you see that future? Where do you see the potential here? And what are your thoughts on that?
So there are 2, 3 thoughts that I have over here, right? One is definitely it's going to grow, right? Because people want better quality products at a cheaper price. But how big or how massive is it going to get very soon? I think that is a doubt that everyone in this industry has, right? because it's something that is not culturally very acceptable to a lot of people. I mean, you go to websites and in 185 rupees, you're getting a new dress.
Yes.
Right? So there are many such sort of fast fashion brands in India, and manufacturing is being done in India.
Okay.
So would people actually go and spend more money and buy a pre-loved Mango or a Zara dress?
Okay.
Or a pre-loved Bunai, Suta, or Okhai, right? Because they believe in those brands. So I think that acceptance and that industry will grow gradually and slowly, and it requires a lot of patience, and it requires an amount of grit and resilience to keep going. Um, is there a viable business model? I think it's a very tough business, very tough business, because on each garment you can barely make any money. It looks like you bought it from someone and you sold it at a great price, but for 100 garments, what you have to do it for each garment.
Correct. Correct.
So storing it, warehousing it, right? Imagine getting lost in a warehouse of like 1,000 garments. So margin that you have in the fashion business, which is typically 40 to 60 to 70% gross margin on each garment. In the resale business, it's like negligible, single digit.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's actually quite interesting because, yeah, as a layman, you would think that, hey, there's enough margins here because you're just getting the product and sort of selling it at a higher price and you're
Yeah.
done. And but when you say it like that, if it's just a single digit, it is a tough business.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that, you mentioned Bunai, Suta, and Okai, which brings me to my next question, which is you worked with Okai as their CEO. You were there with them for about 7 years. And is that where the idea for Relove or Restore and then Relove was sort of triggered? Or how did that journey in any way impact Relove?
For sure, right? Like, I mean, we set up Okai and its entire D2C business from scratch, right? And learned every single nut and bolt of the fashion business. Um, I knew my customers had 100 garments each from me, a couple of them. One customer in particular had I had followed her on Instagram and had seen that she was dropping sizes from extra large to extra small, and she was buying different sizes all the time. And
Oh, wow.
you know I, suddenly, like, all of that weight was gone, and she had to do something with those garments, right? And I was like, this can be a service that can be provided to a brand's customers for them to remain loyal to a brand, right? Because what are they going to do with those garments?
Correct.
And so why make it a resell button in the customer's order history? The customer can come back, click on the resell button, take stock credit from the brand, buy something else from the brand, and another customer can be acquired by the brand by selling that product for cheaper. It also creates a higher value for first-hand items, right?
Correct.
Because if you have this first-hand item that is potentially going to have a resale value to it,
Correct.
people are more likely to buy it.
Correct. 100%. 100%. So your journey with Okai and seeing that entire sort of back end and seeing how much customers actually end up hoarding, I would say has been one of the triggers which sort of made you feel that this could be a potential business that could be looked into, where we could also reduce the carbon footprint, we could reduce the fabric and fashion waste that, we are creating as brands. And no matter how much we want to say that we're not doing it, but eventually every fashion brand in the world is sort of in some way doing it, right? And I have this one question. As a fashion brand, right, as a young fashion label, a lot of our audience or a lot of our students are sort of final year students in design college, would be starting their own entrepreneurial journeys, starting their own labels. What are some things that should be kept in mind from the get-go, from the basics, from the foundation level that makes them more sort of sustainable and more sort of conscious towards the environment while they're building a brand?
I think right from textile, right? Textile is a great sort of percentage of the garment itself and the life cycle of the garment is quite dependent on the textile of the garment, right? If it's pure cotton, no other mixture, zips, nuts, and bolts are not really are easily detachable for recycling, or are they completely like difficult to dismantle?
Correct.
A lot of those things depend on the textile. So one of the major things I would say is textile, and the second I'd say is technology. Like I feel like fashion students come out, and like simple tech is very challenging for them, and the only way that they can sell now is online,
Yeah.
right? The only way to start.
Yeah.
And so you'll note that a lot of these very successful brands, large scale brands, their founders are not designers, they're engineers, including me,
Yes.
right? So I would say that, fashion is important. And of course, I had learned some technical aspects of fashion. I was exposed to it in early phases of my life. I knew my cuts and seams, but technology is key.
Awesome. So, what role do you see technology playing in the sort of expansion of the circular economy within the fashion industry? Where do you see technology playing a role here?
I think Relove is the biggest example of tech being deployed to make fashion circular. Um, how complicated does it sound that there is a resell button on the client's website or brand's website, and we power it to make the transaction happen between person A and person B? A layman would be like, how the hell can that even happen, right?
Yeah.
But for me and Pratik, to build out that entire tech was like a very quick job. Like we built the entire technology in 3 months, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
so impressive.
I mean, it's really just understanding of use cases, understanding of technology, and the understanding to productize that technology, right? Because it can't just be like isolated that, okay, this is a tool I know, but how do you know how to use that tool, right?
Correct.
Um, so I would say that having a resell button, rescue the second program that we have, which is selling damaged inventory, right? Which is such a critical aspect of every fashion brand. They make losses upwards of 9 to 10% because
Wow.
of getting damaged inventory in each lot. 9 to 10 pieces in 100 piece out lot are damaged. Now through rescue, we've given them a little interface which is on the phone. They can take a photograph of the defect and upload it as a variant of the product. So, where you could buy small, medium, and large, you can now buy small with a little pen mark and medium with a little hole on the shoulder. The price is affordable.
Wow.
That is also such a
Correct.
simple implementation of circular tech, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that sounds so interesting. And wow. I'm still sort of stuck on the 3 months to build the entire tech bit right now. Because coming from a non-tech background, coming from a core design background, tech is one thing which I realized only during the pandemic. It's like it is the future. Like there's no sort of hiding away from it. There's no thinking of brick and mortar. There's no future for you as a fashion brand or a brand in any scenario today if you're not using digital and if you're not using technology in your business. So kudos to you. I think that's definitely a very, very amazing skill that the two of you have, which you've used and utilized in the best way possible for building Relove. I think using it judiciously and in the right space is what has made and given us, I think we have a customer, a proud relover always commenting, which has given all of us access to some of our best brands, right? Some of our most favorite brands like Suta, like Summer House, Punai, and be able to shop from them. Even if we don't want to pay in full, we can now go buy something pre-loved, right? And at literally just three simple clicks, which is so amazing. So kudos to that, Kirti. Amazing. This is really interesting, which brings me to asking you this: that are there any consumer? I mean, of course, we discussed on it and we touched on it earlier in our conversation that there's still a lot of awareness that needs to be built around pre-loved goods, but Is there a consumer sort of behavioral shift that you're seeing after Relove? Are you seeing sort of more awareness? Is there something that you feel like, okay, people are getting more aware? Maybe they're still not. Would you like to sort of show, shine some light on that?
I would say I'm seeing a lot of first timers who have not ever bought sustainable or have never bought pre-loved, buying pre-loved. So I think they are they put a lot of trust into Relove, and credibility and trust. I think Relove found it in their hearts and has been able to connect with them. And so we've seen a lot of first timers. Would you say that sustainable fashion is a large part of fashion? No, it's actually 6% of India's fashion market, right? Six, you can stretch it maximum to 12 because we all buy cotton. But if you really had to count actual sustainable fashion, it is 2 to 6% of Indian fashion.
Wow.
So is that large? No, it's a very small but growing industry. Uh, very high potential, and an industry that has a low barrier for entry, right? Because small fashion brands, individuals can enter that industry pretty honestly.
Correct. All right. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. Um, we talk about sustainability, and I remember back in 2013, 14, sustainability was sort of considered to just be a fad, right? It was just one of those things that we were just reading about in books, and we were like, matlab, it's going to become a thing eventually in the future, but dekha jayega what's going to happen. I think 2015 is when Lakme Fashion Week first had a sustainability day, right? And that's when we were like, okay, as fashion students, right? We were all like, oh, wow, like, it's going to stay here. It looks like it's going to be here for the long run. But even today, I feel like in design education, we don't really have a lot of emphasis and importance given to sustainability in fashion. We don't really have a lot of courses that are hardcore, especially in India, right? That revolve around sustainability in design or that revolve around circular economy. How do you envision the role of education and awareness in shaping the future for pre-loved fashion? What is your take on the entire, sustainable fashion industry that we have currently? And do you feel, since you said that there's only 2 to 4% or 2 to 6%, of the industry that's sort of sustainable in India, do you think education could play a role there?
Absolutely. I'm surprised that there is no circular design course in fashion colleges. Is it there?
We don't really have a sustainable fashion course in India, or we don't. I mean, I have friends who are studying sustainability and design abroad.
Yeah.
I have friends who've gone to sort of, SCAT to study. I have friends who are doing courses at London College of Fashion. But in India, unfortunately, we don't really have a course on sustainability and design, right? None of the top fashion schools have still incorporated it as a core part of the curriculum.
Wow. I'd say that it's absolutely required, right? Because uh, people need to be inducted into the idea. But I'd also say that it's common sense, right?
100%.
Like it's a bit of common sense. But has it become common sense for me because and I read about it long enough and it's become second nature, and maybe it won't occur to somebody that this fabric is not sustainable or this fabric is sustainable, right? So now I don't no longer look at the list of sustainable fabrics. I evaluate the fabric with the possibilities of can this be recycled? Is this decomposable, or my own criterias, right? So I think that intuition you build once you have gone through enough content. So I would say it's very important to basically include this in college, because otherwise we can't really build the industry. And I think the gap and that somebody from the new generation of designers could fulfill is to have an sustainable brand.
Makes so much sense. And I love the fact that you brought in affordability into the picture, because I feel like as we become sustainable, or as we start having more sustainable brands in the country, a very big gray area is that sustainability becomes only for the elite. it becomes for a lot of brands are a 20-year-old can't really afford like an 8,000 rupee dress, right? You call it sustainable, but the kid will still go to like a 1,000 rupee or a 1,200 rupee dress or a 2,000 rupee dress at max. So making a more sustainable brand, which is also sort of affordable, and considering the population of this country, is catering to the masses. I think that would make absolute sense. I have one thing though that I wanted to ask you, Kirti, before we sort of end this conversation, and that is, for a design student, like majority of our students here, and as you said, maybe we will come up with a course in sustainability and design because it seems like a need of the hour. For a design student, what should be an absolute non-negotiable in terms of, when they're studying design, right? What advice would you have for them, coming from sort of a maybe a non-design background and an engineering background, but having a core expertise of running, two businesses in fashion now? Love that.
I would say, I already mentioned sustainability, circularity, technology, textile. I already mentioned all of that, right? Uh, I think business application of fashion is often not taught in a fashion school, right? Um, how are you going to do your costing? Something as simple as building a costing sheet
Yeah.
is not taught in a school.
Yeah.
Something as simple as a supply chain tracker is not taught in a fashion school. Like I recently took a class and I had like so many founders join in because they were like, this is what we needed to learn. And I was like, I just built that tracker because I came from a strategy background and I knew how to build a tracker, right?
Correct.
I built it for non-fashion companies and I just like tailored it to fashion now. So I think that business application of fashion is super important. And I feel like as a teacher who has not run a business, it would be damn tough to teach that class. So
Yeah.
either teachers should go and do internships
Yeah.
in business, or they should invite business people to teach that.
Correct. 100%. 100%. I think that's a gap we really, really do need to fill in design education. Have experts come in and take topics on topics that are more sort of industry related, that need hands-on industry experience before actually, because otherwise it's just rote learning, right? It's just sort of textbook learning that you're doing. That makes so much sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. It was such a pleasure to have you join us today.
Thank you.